The origin of the Foundation for Evangelism was a group of visionary laity who came together way back in 1949. They set our purpose as being diffusing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Our mission today is to promote, encourage, and provide resources for Wesleyan evangelism so that all people are invited into life-transforming relationship with God through Jesus Christ. The Foundation for Evangelism has three major grant focus areas: equipping the local church, raising up gospel leaders, and engaging the ministry of the laity. As we enter our 75th year, I hope that we continue to be a model of the Wesleyan tradition. That is the joy, that is the living, transformed life right now. So, happy 75th anniversary to the Foundation for Evangelism. Visit our website to learn more about how you can be part of this journey, this work to spread the Great Commission all around the world.
Hello and welcome. This is our third and final virtual event highlighting the Foundation for Evangelism's three granting areas. My name is Heather Lear and I serve as the Vice President of Grants, and so I have the privilege of working directly with all of these ministries. Over the past few months, it's been a joy to remember and reflect on what God has done through the Foundation for Evangelism over the last 75 years. And celebrate and anticipate the lives that will still be touched and transformed. Well, I've enjoyed sharing and am so proud and committed to our first two focus areas that we've highlighted: raising up gospel leaders and engaging the ministry of the laity. Today's granting area, equipping the local church, holds a special place in my heart. As you will see, it's also in and through the local church where the fruit and impact of our training and equipping is fully realized. In his 2018 book, our E. Stanley Jones professor at Boston University, Brian Stone, unpacks his research of how people actually come to faith. His study includes people of all religions, but his discovery around the factors that led mainline Christians, the umbrella that those of us who claim a Wesleyan tradition fall under, really is key to our work. The greatest factor and influence that led these Christians to make a commitment to follow Jesus was the local church. It was a particular community of faith in the body of Christ that was most influential. And also in reflecting on their journeys, the majority of these folks understood their decision to be the result of a gradual process and a journey, not just one specific event. Despite declining attendance and participation, I firmly believe the local church still matters. While personal, our faith is not meant to be individualistic or compartmentalized from the rest of our life. It's in the local church where we learn the stories of who God is and what God is doing, and ultimately what God will do in the redemption of all creation through Jesus Christ. The local church is where we learn and are reminded each week of who we are as children of God, where we discover our gifts and our commission to love and serve our neighbors in our everyday lives. As the body of Christ together, we are God's witnesses and hands and feet in the world. Local churches matter, but we also know that there are many, especially smaller churches, that find themselves stuck, struggling to connect with their communities or live out their mission. And these smaller churches currently make up the majority of congregations across the United States. In a 2021 study, it was revealed that 70% of churches have fewer than 100 weekly participants. and the average weekly attendance among all congregations is 65. In my early years of ministry, I served smaller local churches struggling to once again connect with their neighbors and discover who and what God was calling them to be now. Over the years, I've watched these and other congregations bloom and thrive and believe that God can and still will use them to transform their communities. So in 2022, we launched our first Equipping the Local Church grant cycle to be a catalyst to help them to do just that. Awards of $5,000 are available for congregations under 100, and there are $10,000 grants for congregations under 250 or a group of congregations that are working together on a single project. Our first grant story comes from Russell Memorial CME in Durham, North Carolina. Russell Memorial's pastor, Reverend Dr. Jerry Lee Christian, participated in a panel discussion at our 2023 board meeting, where he shared the amazing ways God is connecting their church with their community and the ways they offer care and support for their neighbors in body, mind, and soul.
God has opened doors and showed us untapped resources, untapped individuals that was jewels in the church that had not been used by the church. Because the church has so many times been using the same people, and now we've seen other people that's like, oh, we didn't know you had that talent. We didn't know you. And so they knowing other people. As a matter of fact, we took 50 children from the house and our projects to the water park after vacation Bible school. And they was like, well, I found someone, they said they love what you're doing, and they're going to help take care of them going to the water. So it's like untapped people are just coming in and helping. God is stretching what God is giving to help provide the ministries that are needed. And we are seeing individuals that is coming, giving their time, laity, giving their time, volunteering, not worrying about if they get a check. They're just giving their time, their love, and their passion. And we are seeing it just multiply enormously through resources and through the physical attendance of the people and within the community. So one of the things that we noticed that we had to address was mental health. Even though they were homeless, sheltered, the kids in school, all of them was dealing with mental health. And we was amazed to see a lot of our homeless and people that was in poverty was people who served our country, was in poverty, and mental health issues from either fear, postpartum, anything that was. And we as a church was figuring that sometimes we don't add the science with religion. We either add religion, separate the science. We do science, add religion, but not understanding that it all goes hand in hand. So we ended up having a health fair that was supposed to be one day, and it ended up being 4 days because we partnered with Duke Clinical and dentistries, and kids could get free cleaning, free health care, blood pressure check for the seniors, things. And so we had physicians come in and give their time And all it took resources. So we thank God for the grant. It took resources to realize that it was a whole lot of individuals that, as an African American, I've said like this, in the urban community, people are skeptical to go to the doctor. People are skeptical to go to the dentistry. So their safe haven was the church, that they would trust us, or they trust to go. And we found a lot of veterans that have the insurance, but just won't go to the VA. You know, they have the access to things. So we had veterans that's from the congregation that began to reach out to them, and wives would be like, "Can you get him to go to the doctor? Can you get him to go?" We have individuals that recheck on the individuals, the names are coming, so we can see how you doing, how are you progressing in life. Is anything getting better? And them knowing us from a personal level now. Like, they may call the office, Dr. Christian, can we talk to you? Can my child talk? Some of the laity that has reached out to them on a personal level. We have what we call small groups, where 3 or 4 of these individuals may take 8 or 10 of those individuals, so that it's not on one individual or two. And so they have that personal connection with them. And we've seen a change in the formerly incarcerated, or those that were homeless, or was in poverty. Lives has been changed, and now they are volunteering to help the ones from situations they're in, because they are better to reach out to those and understand what they are going through. So we've seen a transformation. Prime example, one individual who was homeless, incarcerated, is a member of the church now, and after going through the process, he has started his own construction company and has rehired individuals. And so we've seen that just be, the church needs something, him and his crew comes in and does everything that needs to be done from a construction level. And we've just seen the witness of a microism of people changing their lives and then reaching back to those so that no one is left behind. The hot breakfast on Sunday morning, and then the mentorship with the youth and the church. They're mostly young adults who had just graduated from college. Those that was former gang members, former incarcerated, former drug addicts or alcoholics. Those are the individuals that help mentor the youth and the children. Now, for as the tutorial program, we have a lot of retired educators, and we always joke with them, was like, I said, "Are you still living?" "Yeah." You're like, "Yeah, I'm still there." I said, "Well, since you're not dead yet, you might want to put your skills back." They always joke, like, "I've been teaching for 40 years. I was a principal." I said, "Yeah, but you don't have to do it that often." So now the mentorship and then the after school and everything is done with former educators. So it just keeps the program working, that you don't have to have your hands over here and have your hands over here. All the laity, the clergy, the local priests, we all work together. And the churches and the community all come together, working together. No one is trying to do their own thing separate from everyone else, and just figuring out what you do best. Can we work this together? And we've seen children from the age of 15, from 8-year-old to 15, inviting their friends at school, can you come to our church? We are doing this, we have this going. And it's just been exciting because they are not realizing that they are becoming more of disciples than the people who've been at the church. Well, yeah, and we are just seeing that grow. About 2 months ago, after the grad, my administrative assistant called me and said, like, Trey Fly, I was want to talk to you. I said, Trey Fly. I said, you know, he from Durham. He played for the New Orleans Pelicans. I said, you want to talk to me? He's like, yeah. So I go there, and he said, I heard what you doing with the kids. And I'm having a basketball camp, and we want to try to tie this in with you all. And now we see the sheriff's department and working with them, the sheriff department and the ones that used to be gang members and everyone coming together, and they would always joke like, maybe you need a life center. I said, yes, we do. We do need a life. So we're just praying and hoping that they just don't talk about it, but send us the resources to give us a life center as other things could grow. But we are seeing a great transformation in the lives, especially from the youth and the young adults that are really progressing the church on forward.
Now, Russell Memorial is not a large church, but they've listened well to their community, and they've recognized and empowered their laity to use their gifts and strengths. And they've built community partnerships to expand their impact and reach. Their holistic ministry is a great example of the types of projects we seek to fund because they embody the Foundation for Evangelism's values. Our next story comes from Jeremy Reese, pastor of Aiken Ebenezer Church of the Nazarene in Aiken, South Carolina. Their story highlights the truly catalytic impact of what just $5,000 or $10,000 can do for a church and a community, and the ways that God will use and multiply their efforts.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Reese, lead pastor of Aiken Ebenezer Church of the Nazarene in Aiken, South Carolina. In 2022, I began serving as interim pastor at the church. The church had just come through the difficulties of the pandemic, and they were going through a pastoral transition that had lasted more than 3 months. On my first Sunday, there were 10 people in attendance. So after the service, I sat down for my first board meeting with 3 of those 10 people, and I asked them a question. What excites you in ministry at Aiken Ebenezer? The response was unanimous. The ways in which we are serving our community, especially those who are experiencing homelessness. During the pastoral transition, those 10 people had dedicated themselves to ministering in the community, building emergency care kits, providing meals, and reaching out in other ways. We decided during that board meeting that this would be our focus. We wouldn't focus on children's ministry. Now, you may not be aware, but at the time, I had 4 children, 7 and under. We wouldn't focus on student ministry or any other type of ministry aside from compassionate ministry. That would be our focus. Our community would be our focus. Over the next few months, we refocused our mission. We branded the church around 3 stones of an Ebenezer, symbolizing the threefold mission of the church: to embody love, embrace community, and to encounter Jesus. We recognized that if this small group of people was going to make an impact, it was only because, as Samuel says in 1 Samuel 7:12, thus far the Lord has helped us. I became aware of the Foundation for Evangelism through a quick Google search. Soon after, I was able to meet Heather at the Exponential Conference in Orlando. And during that time, our church had begun to grow. There were people that would walk into our 950 square foot building, some after walking from the pay-by-day motel across the street, others just seeking a place to get out of the cold, and others that were compelled by our mission to make an impact in the community. And as we talked with some of our neighbors that were experiencing housing insecurity, we recognized a need. We were providing hygiene products in our emergency care kits, but many of them lacked access to a bath or shower, even a water hose to be able to bathe. Wounds from miles of walking, wounds that were made during day jobs that they were trying to get to earn money. Those wounds, they were being left unattended and they were becoming infected. We were in a rented facility that only had one half bathroom. So we sought other ways to make adequate hygiene accessible. This is where the Foundation for Evangelism came in. We applied for our first grant to start a shower trailer ministry, and we partnered with another church in the area and set up a trailer with 2 complete bathrooms once a month outside of our building. This launched our Water for the Way ministry, utilizing the trailer in conjunction with other outreach opportunities. Here's what happened. Our church became even more mission focused. We began to seek new ways of ministering to our community, helping others with temporary housing, resume preparation, financial budgeting, so much more. Ministries were launched. We had more children attending, so we launched children's ministry. More middle and high school students were attending, so we launched a student ministry. We saw a need for deeper study, so we launched discipleship classes and groups. And out of this singular focus that the church board had committed to, ministry grew. We realized that true, lasting transformation and change was happening as we developed relationship, as we walked this journey alongside others. The first Sunday in January, a single mom with 3 children showed up at the church. Her name was Stacy. They were living with a friend in Florida, and the friend's landlord had forced them to leave, so they were dropped off at a motel in Aiken. No job, no food, no money. So we covered the cost of the room that evening, and then I met with her and her family the next morning, and we developed a plan together to help lift her and her family out of poverty. At this point, the church was on the verge of outgrowing our small rented storefront, and so we had begun praying for what was next for our church community, knowing that we didn't have the financial means to rent a larger space. As I was leaving the church one day, I noticed a for sale sign on an old payday loan store across the road, right next to the motel where Stacy and her family were living. I ended up being the first person to call the number on the sign, and I learned that a 93-year-old Christ follower was selling the property. We went and looked around the building. It had been vacant for years, but provided us with nearly 6 times the amount of space of our current building. It was in bad disrepair, but we saw potential. The last 3 years at the church were not the best financially, and so we were denied mortgage loans by 4 different banks before we finally got approved. The lady that sold us the building sold it for $220,000, but then wrote us a check for $20,000 to help start renovations. That building, our new church building, is currently valued at nearly $1 million. Now we're a church with a heart for the community that is a part of the community, declaring that we don't rent, we own. Our first Sunday in our new location, I baptized Stacy and 2 of her children. She went from working other people's shifts at Waffle House just to make enough money to cover the next night at the motel, to having a job that not only provides a salary, but provides housing. Her 2 older children went from not knowing the names of Jesus' parents to now competing monthly in Bible quizzing. Ministry opportunities continue to grow as we seek ways to bring abundant life and hope to individuals and families. I'm recording this video 2 days before our first meeting of our recovery ministry. We've seen the devastating effects of addiction on our community, and through the Foundation for Evangelism grant, we're working to help people find freedom from the issues controlling their lives. We're working on funding to bring a social worker on staff that'll assist people in applying for assistance, finding housing, seeking medical attention, and so much more. We're still a small church. Our average attendance on Sunday mornings has grown to around 70, but we are with the help of God's Spirit, seeking to make a big impact in a hurting and broken community. I credit the Foundation for Evangelism as one of the main catalysts for what we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years. The grant we received in 2023, it sparked excitement among our congregation. We were determined to make a difference. So from the congregation at Aiken Ebenezer Nazarene, I want to say thank you. And I can't wait to share more of how God has used you to transform a small town in South Carolina.
So far, you've heard stories of local churches from 2 Wesleyan tradition denominations. We are committed to being an organization that focuses on our common heritage and mission and celebrates that our Equipping the Local Church grants have been awarded across 8 different denominations and across almost 40 states. Well, along with the intentional work to laser focus on our 3 granting areas, our staff and board also took on the significant task of identifying and defining our values as an organization. These values not only guide our work, but serve as the lens and the criteria through which our grants are evaluated. Each grant is scored by the way the proposals answer questions based on our values of evangelistic, Wesleyan, catalyst, steward, leaders, and equip. We also understand that writing a proposal and applying for a grant is probably new and a little intimidating for most leaders of these smaller churches. So we try to make our process as simple and transparent as possible. Orientation sessions are held for applicants to ask questions and be instructed how each proposal will be scored based on the questions and criteria linked to our values. The hope is they leave these sessions understanding exactly what we're looking for and what needs to be included in their program and application.
Ministries funded through the Equipping the Local Church grant cycle have sometimes needed to shift. With permission from the Foundation, they have adapted their programs to fit the changing needs of their communities. One such church that successfully pivoted is Tehachapi Valley United Methodist Church in California. In 2023, Tehachapi Valley was awarded grant funding for their Belonging Ministries initiative, the Builders Club, aimed at supporting underserved people with disabilities in the area. This club focuses on learning about one or more of the fruits of the Spirit. The fruit is defined, modeled, acknowledged, and embedded within the activities of the club. The club leadership team encourages the builders to identify examples of kindness or joy as exhibited through the club activities. Tehachapi Valley knew there was a need, and because of their leaders' years of experience working with children with autism, they developed a plan they were confident would connect with the kids. The initial idea was to have the kids in the program build specific Lego creations, but after their first gathering, they realized the kids wanted something different. Wilma Sweeney, director of the Belonging Ministries and Builders Club, said this.
This was what I was so certain we were going to be able to do. The first night that we were at Builders, that shot it out of the water. This was the part that stinks, was that all the expertise, all of the teach training that I've ever had in my entire life, all of the structure, all of the visual schedule, all of that stuff, none of this was going to work. We found that out the first night.
The Builders Club leadership listened and were responsive to the needs of those in the program. This quickly turned the Lego project into something more helpful to the participants than they could have ever imagined. In dismantling the original restrictions to what could be built out of Legos for the project, leadership gave those in the program the freedom to use creativity in what they were building out of Legos. This inspired others with special needs to join the program, even young adults and adults. Building these Lego creations has helped to improve fine motor skills for the builders and has been a huge hit in the community. The Builders Club, with full support from the Foundation for Evangelism, listened well and were able to fully meet the needs of those in the club. A mother of a child with a disability from the community around Tehachapi Valley United Methodist Church and working with children with disabilities in the local school system shared her thoughts on the Builders Club and the impact it's having for families like hers. You meet other parents and you can share and not feel alone. You get to ask, what did you try? What are you doing? How's it going for you at school? Programs like this are good for parents. It's a network. My family and I go to a different church, but we are part of the Builders Club program. Wilma and Tehachapi Valley have been so welcoming to people of all faiths. I know some of the other kids in this program through my job, working with families of special needs children. And one of the most common things parents ask is, what is available in this community for our children? Because they just don't know. So I can tell them, oh, try this club, try the Builders Club. And when they discover clubs and programs like this one, they are incredibly grateful. The Builders Club at Tehachapi Valley continues to build connections and support families with disabilities, creating a stronger, more compassionate community.
Our final grant story demonstrates how all three of our granting areas work together and the ripple effects of our training and equipping. Sometimes we don't see the fruit of our effort, but God blessed me through reconnection with Stacia. Stacia Duncan was one of my evangelism students during one of the COVID semesters when I was serving as an adjunct professor at Claremont School of Theology. The final project for the course was to develop a congregational evangelism strategy that was rooted biblically and theologically, it was contextually relevant, and explicitly grounded in the good news the student had experienced and desired for others. Stacia's project was developing a ministry for children with special needs, particularly on the autism spectrum, as she had 2 children of her own with autism. And over the years, she struggled to find a place for them in the church. Well, fast forward 2 years, and Stacia submitted a grant application to fund an All Abilities ministry at her church in Tempe, Arizona. She shared her dream with the laity from her church, and the response and support she received was tremendous.
When we first started, we had these big visions of reaching out to a community and filling our church, up with a large group of individuals. And we learned through this grant period of time that it's not about the numbers, as you had just mentioned, but it has been about how God moves among us. That we have done the most growth and learning. Some of the really touching stories came out of the events that we did for the community. Our grant activity was to build in a ministry for the developmental disabled community and their families. And we wanted to make the church inclusive so that those from the developmental disability community could be with us in an inclusive environment. And so we started out by doing events. We did photos sessions for the developmental disability community for Christmas by doing a Sensitive Santa event and providing crafts to do while they waited to eliminate the lines. And then we gave them a full room for their family where it was just their family alone with plenty of time to get the pictures that they needed. We did this with Santa. We did this with the Fall Festival. We did this with Easter. We had stories that came out of this that really moved our congregation. Like, for instance, we had parents that would be moved to tears and tell stories that they had never had a picture with Santa with their child, and something that others take for granted was so moving for them. And almost every time we would hear family members say, "This was so loving. This is what love is." And even though it seemed to be so secular, still the love of Christ came through, and they could receive that in a way that they just knew that as a God-loving community, this is where these moves of compassion came from. And as a result, our congregation was able to glimpse a world of individuals in this community where they were able to say, you know, we take these things for granted. This is just what we all can do. We can walk into a mall and do this. But we had no idea that there was a group of people that this was not even possible for them. And so it was through those kinds of situations that our congregation grew warm toward this group of individuals and began to ask, what can I do? So where they were previously saying, oh, I can't work in disability ministry, no way, I just can't volunteer. But now these same folks are saying, I can hang swings, I can make goodies, I'll play an elf. We had people that were willing to dress up and do these things. And they got to see that out of this ministry, we have a child with cerebral palsy who has never had a friend, who now has a friend in Sunday school, because she, even though in 14 years of her life has never been able to be in an inclusive environment, in a church environment, is now able to be in our inclusive environment. We were able to put automatic doors on so that wheelchairs can come and go. We were able to put in an adult changing table so that, you know, folks who are her age and still incontinent can be there, and mom and dad and caregivers can be there for her. We were able to bring in aides so that she and others with autism were able to go into the sanctuary and take communion for the first time. That really moved the congregation. I heard things like, oh, I get it. It's not about the numbers. It's, wow, they're completely isolated until our program, and now they're with us. And so the light bulbs are kind of clicking on with the congregation, and as a result, they would like to keep these traditions of reaching out to the community. So whereas we don't have a lot of numbers in Sunday school as we had envisioned, we have a changed congregation in the way that they think about disability, and our ministry is no longer remaining just for the developmental disability community, but people are beginning to recognize that they too are benefiting from what has been done as a result of the grant. We have people that are saying, you know, I thought this was for the one group of people that were different from us coming in, but I'm learning I can open the door easier now. And somebody else came and said to me, you know, all of the ways that you do literal liturgy, very literal for those with autism, makes sense to my mother who has Alzheimer's. And so they're beginning to realize this is an all abilities ministry. And so that's what it's been called, is all abilities ministry. We're finding a new way to be fully inclusive for all kinds of levels of ability.
I had the opportunity to visit First Tempe one Friday morning this past summer and was thrilled to walk in the door and be greeted by 8 passionate lay volunteers, in addition to Stacia. They excitedly shared stories and showed me around the space and the ways the grant had funded the ability to be accessible for anybody who came through the door, now that the doors were easier to open. I was also taken aback as I saw some of the books I assigned in the evangelism class sitting on the table. It was grateful that Stacia used them as resources for her group. But what really struck me was the ownership of the church in the ministry. It may have been Stacia's dream, but it had grown and will continue without her as she moves on towards ordination in a new ministry site. That's what we desire to see from these grants. Initiatives where an idea or a dream multiplies. It involves the entire congregation and can continue to thrive, even if the primary leader moves on. I hope you've been encouraged and inspired by these stories. Our next Equipping the Local Church grant cycle opens in January, and I'm excited to see the creativity and imagination and the transformational ministry that God will allow us to be a small part of. Now, over the past 3 years, I've read hundreds of grant applications, and through that process, I've discovered that we have another opportunity. Many of these smaller local churches do have a desire to thrive and to make an impact, but they aren't quite sure where to start. Many of the proposals we receive are from congregations trying to copy what they've seen another, often larger church do. Or someone in the church has a great idea, but they haven't done their homework to see if it will actually connect with their community. Other congregations really want to meet a need, but they haven't quite figured out how to connect doing good with living out their faith. Through our Raising Up Gospel Leaders grants and trainings, we've seen the fruit and the difference that education can make for churches and their leaders. That's why I'm thrilled to share that we're expanding our ability to come alongside these struggling churches through our new cohorts. In these cohorts, lay and clergy leadership teams will come together for evangelism training using a curriculum that focuses on their opportunities for growth. And at the conclusion of the training, they'll have the chance to develop their evangelism strategy and apply for a grant for seed money to launch their evangelism experiment. This fall, right now, we're piloting 2 curriculums with past grant applicants, and we'll formally launch the program in early 2025. I'll host an information session about these new cohorts on Thursday, November 14th, and invite you to attend or to share the session with churches who you know that might benefit from this work. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. If you missed the other virtual sessions about our Raising Up Gospel Leaders or Engaging the Ministry of the Laity grant areas, you can find those recordings on our website. This is our final virtual gathering before the culmination of our 75th anniversary that will happen in Charlotte in November. You're invited to join us for an evening of learning and inspiration on Saturday, November 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Todd Bolsinger will be our featured speaker, and you can learn more about how you can be part of what God continues to do through the Foundation for Evangelism, as we seek to be a catalyst to equip disciples to share the good news of Jesus Christ.